Chapter 24. Wyatt Earp's final showdown with the Cowboys. Luke, Jenny, and the Swamper were standing near a little watering hole called Iron Springs. They watched Wyatt and his friends come up to the creek to water their horses. Bang, bang! Suddenly, shots were fired from the bushes on the other side of the creek. Jenny grabbed Luke by the shoulder and pulled him back. As they looked back up, they saw several cowboys opening fire on the Earps. A bullet hit one of the horses and it fell dead, pinning its rider underneath. Wyatt Earp leaped off his horse and looked back at his friends with a look of pure disbelief on his face. They were all riding away, leaving Wyatt to face the cowboys alone. "Look, Jenny," exclaimed Luke as he pointed at the cowboys. "It's our old friend, Curly Bill." "You're right," Luke replied Jenny, "and look, Wyatt sees him too." Curly Bill began firing at Wyatt Earp. "If I go down, I'm taking you with me," shouted Wyatt. He raised his shotgun and fired at Curly Bill. He fired the gun with both barrels. The rounds hit him square in the chest, and Curly Bill screamed as he fell. The other cowboys returned fire as Wyatt reached for his rifle in his saddle scabbard. But his horse, frightened by the sounds of the gunfire, started to rear, taking the rifle out of his reach. Wyatt reached for his pistol and fired back into the brush. He tried to get back on the horse, but his gun belt had slipped from around his waist and was wrapped around his thighs. That made it almost impossible to get back on. The cowboys kept firing as Wyatt, with one foot in the stirrup, tried to lift his gun belt with one hand while holding on to the frightened horse with the other. "In a way, Wyatt is lucky this happened," said the Swamper. "All this moving around makes him a hard target to hit." As the bullets kept whizzing past him, Wyatt somehow managed to get his gun belt up and get back on his horse. He stopped long enough to help his friend, Texas Jack Vermillion, out from underneath his dead horse. Texas Jack leaped on the back of Wyatt's horse and the two raced away. "Doc Holliday and the others couldn't believe that Wyatt and Texas Jack escaped in one piece," said the Swamper. "It's just like that day near the OK Corral," observed Jenny. "Wyatt walked away without a scratch that day, too. My grandmother would probably say that Wyatt Earp has the luck of the Irish." "So what happened then?" asked Luke. "After that day in Iron Springs, Wyatt must have gotten his fill of killing. No other cowboys died at his hand after that. Behan's posse kept after the Earps, but they never caught up with them. Wyatt and the others eventually made their way to New Mexico, and then Wyatt went on to Colorado. He settled there for a time, but Wyatt never stayed in one place for too long." "So Wyatt never went to trial?" asked Jenny. "No," said the Swamper, "and as far as I know, he never returned to Arizona, but his reputation would haunt him for the rest of his life." He told them that Wyatt and his wife Josephine would spend the next 50 years seeking their fortune throughout the West. They would travel as far away as Alaska. And then, in his last days, Wyatt Earp lived in Los Angeles, working with some of the movie studios in Hollywood as a historical consultant. "Wyatt Earp worked in Hollywood?" asked Jenny. "Yep," replied the Swamper. "Wyatt died in 1929. At that time, silent movies were being made. In fact, one of the pallbearers at Wyatt's funeral was a famous silent movie star by the name of Tom Mix." "What about Doc Holliday?" asked Luke. "Doc died of consumption in Colorado in 1886, said the Swamper. "As rough of a man as he was, he managed to die peacefully in his own bed." "And Curly Bill?" asked Jenny. "Funny you should mention him," said the Swamper. "Wyatt killed Curly Bill that day, but no one knows where he's buried. Remember when we went to Galeyville and you saw Jim Wallace shoot Curly Bill in the head?" "Yes," said Luke. "Well, because Curly Bill had survived that time, a lot of folks believed he'd survived this time too. So there were stories of Curly Bill sightings for some time afterward, but they were all just rumors. Curly Bill was never seen anywhere in or around Tombstone again." "Except as a spirit person," added Luke. "Isn't he still waiting for you to watch a ball game at Big Nose Kate's?" "Yep, he is," said the Swamper. "In fact, it's time for you to go back to Tombstone as well." Instantly, they were walking down Allen Street once again. The Swamper told Luke and Jenny that another fire would soon come along in May of 1882 and nearly burn the town down once again. And just like before, the town would quickly rebuild and be back in business. But then the mines would later flood, and that event would mark the end of the boomtown years. Tombstone would later become something of a ghost town, living on its memories. "It's been called the town too tough to die," he said as he ended his story and they stopped in front of Campbell and Hatch's saloon. "Well, it's nearly time for me to go. Your mother will be back soon, and I have to meet my friends at Big Nose Kate's. The baseball game is about to start." "I don't want you to leave," said Luke. "I want to stay here with you." The Swamper smiled. "You mean this really was more exciting than Disneyland?" "Well," replied Luke, "almost." He gave the Swamper a big smile and started to laugh. "It really was fun, Mr. Swamper, but I would rather live in my own time," said Jenny. Still, I'm going to miss you. I hate saying goodbye to my friends, and now I think of you as my friend." "And I think of both of you as my friends too," said the Swamper. "But don't you worry. You two will come back to Tombstone again, and I'll always be here." "Goodbye, Mr. Swamper," said Jenny, "and thank you so much for taking us back to your time. You were right. It really was an exciting adventure. Luke and I both learned a lot." "Goodbye, Jenny," said the Swamper as he tipped his hat to her, "and goodbye, Luke. And don't worry about your father, Luke. He'll be coming home before you know it. Now you two have fun in Dallas." The Swamper turned and started walking across the street toward the Grand Hotel. Then he stopped and looked back. "Oh, by the way, Luke, I'm sorry about your tablet." "What?" asked Luke. "Your battery," he said. "I had to drain it. You see, I needed to use the energy so you two could see me and the other spirit people and to bring you to the past. But don't worry, all you have to do is recharge it and it'll work just fine." "Thanks," said Luke as he sat back on the bench. Then they saw a strange flash of bright light they had seen before. Afterward, they were back in their own time. The cars parked along the side roads replaced the horses. "Look, Luke," said Jenny, pointing across the street. The Grand Hotel was gone. It was once again Big Nose Kate's saloon. The Swamper waved goodbye, turned to go inside Big Nose Kate's, and slowly faded away.